Thank you for another successful year of Convenience Matters. We appreciate all the listeners that we have. What we try to do at the end of the year is we want to play the episode that you told us is the one we most want to hear. So here is the most listened to podcast of the year. It is Stafford Shurden. He is a restaurateur. He is a farmer. He is a 2-time speaker at the NAC show and very highly rated. And he's going to talk about gas station tailgate review. How can you tell your story about what you sell in stores, and how can you get attention of people like Stafford to grow your business? Enjoy.
You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
In the rural communities across our country, the locals know where to go to get great food, and it's at the gas station. Increasingly, people from around the country, regardless of where they live, know where to get great food, and part of that is because of our next guest today and his reach and communications related to gas station food. So today, joining us is Stafford Shurden. We'll keep his title short. He has a lot of hats that he wears. But he created this program called Gas Station Tailgate Review that you can find on YouTube, social media, all kinds of places. And it's made an incredible difference in how our industry is perceived. So first off, welcome, Stafford.
Man, it's good to be back. I think this is the third or fourth time on here.
Yeah, we had you starting out, talking about gas station chicken, and then talking more about your show. And we want to talk about, how your show has evolved and how the messaging has evolved and what you've learned from our industry along the way as you become more connected. But let's start at the basics. Not everybody knows what Gas Station Tailgate Review is. I learned about it from my my brother-in-law. They don't have regular cable TV. They have YouTube that they pretty much watch every night.
Yeah.
And they became addicted to you and said, you gotta find this guy because he's really cool. So that's my brief introduction. You can do a better introduction than that.
Well, in 2019, I retired from being Justice Court Judge. And that did it had some basis because I was careful about what I put on social media. And we wanted to do more with my personality to promote our own business, which is our restaurant here in Drew, Mississippi. And I said, well, everybody here loves gas station food. I don't think many people outside of the South really know how good gas station food in the South is. And then kind of serendipitously, I did a review one day, let the tailgate down so that I had a place to put the food. And then it was the gas station tailgate review after that. And since then, I've been trying to keep up. It's somewhere around 200 stores. I've edited and submitted about 180. But I don't put everybody, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. If it's not good, maybe you had a bad day. So there's a few that didn't make the cut.
So we, as I mentioned, reached out to you. We had you on a couple podcasts. We've stayed in touch. We visited last year. You wound up with Al Hebert, the gas station gourmet, in an Ideas to Go segment. We showed at the NAC show. You talked about road trips in a general session at the NAC show. I remember walking the show floor with you the last day or one of those last days, and somebody just walked around the corner. It's like, Stafford, you could come visit our store next. And somebody up in the Indiana, which is a little far for you, but I don't doubt that you'll probably find places outside of your normal area. But talk about what your experience was like going from talking about convenience stores and gas stations and understanding them from your angle to then being brought into this bigger environment, the NAC show, NAC's convenience stores. What was that whole experience like, and what did it teach you about our industry that maybe you didn't know before?
Well, I think it reinforced some maybe beliefs I might have had that I wasn't sure about. Couple of things. I think that this industry might be the most diverse in ownership of any industry in America. It's not cheap to get a gas station, but there is a level of entry that a lot of people can find. And just to give you an example, in Natchez, Mississippi, there's a taqueria and a gas station. And I really got the feeling talking to that owner, he would have liked to just open a restaurant, but they're hard to get loans for. So instead he buys a gas station, which he could get a loan for. And I think because of that, you don't see many gas stations close. I mean, it's a mostly, in comparison to other industries, stable business. So it just lends itself to diversity. And there's so many, and even in the South, you see the food landscape changing because of gas station food, where you've got taquerias and Vietnamese owned gas stations. And that was just reinforced. I'd kind of seen that in Mississippi, and I was like, I don't know if that's happening everywhere. But then I'm meeting people from out of the country at the NAC show. I don't know if you know this, but Al and I walked straight out and we talked to a group from Mexico City for like 45 minutes. And they own like 75 stores, big group in Mexico. And then the support structure behind all of that, if there's 15 different kinds of gas pumps you can get and all. I wore my shoes out walking around that first day. It really was impressive. And I think you told me it's one of the biggest trade shows in the country, I think, of any trade.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's top 40 in terms of size. There's bigger ones like World of Concrete, but, I still want to go to that one.
I mean, I don't know how you could have a bigger show than that and it'd just be concrete, but who knows?
There's probably a lot of things there, and I'm probably gonna get some hate email from the concrete.
They
folks.
can send
but
it
anyway.
to me. You can throw me under the bus. I think
Okay.
I'm sorry, but gas station food is way more interesting than concrete.
So, I mentioned that you had the gas station tailgate review, and you mentioned that you formerly were a judge, but you have multiple hats. You have a restaurant, and you're a farmer. So you're literally farm to table. What did you take back for either one of those two hats that was of interest? Did you look at anything on the show floor differently in terms of like, hey, that's an interesting way to present shelving units or anything like that also crossed across your, let's call it a little bit of a hobby, to your other two jobs?
Well, through this whole thing, there's been a cross-pollination, and I love that word since I'm a farmer. But
that helps.
There's always a cross-pollination between industries, and I think of myself as a true entrepreneur because I have an inability to shut whatever that is off. And for those out there that are small business owners that cannot shut it off, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, I'm walking through and looking at, I know one of the guys I talked to had and he was from Louisiana, and they were working on this incredible gas pump where as soon as you put your card in, it goes, oh, this is the guy that came in last time and bought a Diet Coke. Let's sell him a Diet Coke right here at the gas pump. And I'm thinking, okay, now how would that translate, that technology translate into what I'm doing in the restaurant here in Drew, Mississippi? So yeah, it was really interesting. I saw a lot of good ideas. I know there was a donut place, and my mind eventually goes to, well, I have an empty building. I wonder if I could open a donut place in my empty building next door. So I don't have the ability to shut it off. Everywhere I go, it works that way. But it also works that way when I'm reviewing this gas station food. So at first it started out this tongue-in-cheek thing where I thought I was going to teach you guys something, and it ended up being the other way around where I'm going in and going, wait a minute, they're way better at whatever it is, making hamburgers than I am. How can I take that back and implement it in my business, which is exactly what I did.
So is there also an element where, say, before you went to the NAC show, you'd go and you'd visit a place and you'd just walk in and you'd look at the kitchen and it's like, okay, here's the kitchen, here's the food, this is what I'm here for. And you being small business, looking at everything, all of a sudden you're saying, wait, I want to see this part of the store. I want to see what their bathrooms are like. I want to see all these other elements. I want to see the convenience store just as much as I want to see the kitchen.
Oh, for sure. And one of I usually do go to the bathrooms, just so you guys know. It's in law, they always talk about the totality of the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't just look at one piece of evidence. They call that a red herring, either prosecution or defense. But customers are coming in your store and they're looking at everything. They're not just looking at the one thing. So I want to do the same thing, but also as a business owner, it's like, what do you have to the left through the door? What do you have to the right? Because most people are right-handed. They're going to look to the right when they come in the door. What's by the register for sale? What do the bathrooms look like? How clean is the store? What's the lighting? So I'm looking at all of that because I know sometimes I look at what you guys have by the register and kind of scratch my head, like, do people really buy that? And other times I'm like, okay, that's the number one point of sale, is right there at the register, which everybody in this industry knows. But yeah, I'm looking at all of that because I'm trying to copy the good ideas always.
Well, we find multiple reasons why people have items at the register. Sometimes it's required by law because it's age restricted or something like that. Sometimes there's issues related to, shall we call it, shrink.
Oh, for sure.
If it's a high price point and it fits in a pocket, that's something you probably want to keep at the counter. And I remember years ago talking to somebody. He says, "Yeah, we have stores in the South. We have stores in the North, and in the South, the thing that's most likely to wind up in a pocket is Goody's headache powder.
Really?
So we keep that at the counter. So I thought that was interesting.
That
he
is
said in the North, it's said it's Snickers in the North. So
that's interesting. Yeah, we got a lot of headaches in the South, so I can attest to that. Maybe it's the humidity and the dust. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we went a little afield there. But,
that's good. It's all good.
We talked about you attending your first NAC show and what that experience was like. You're back. And this time you're again back as a speaker. You're talking in one of the general sessions, and actually it's titled a master class. You want to talk a little bit about what you're going to go through and what you hope for interaction in this session?
Last year was a lot of fun because I loved the panel discussion. I think that's with the moderator, which worked so well. That's my favorite setup. And you're seeing a lot more of that instead of the TED Talk style. But that's what we're doing this year is more of a TED Talk style. And Jenna and I were talking. Jenna worked with you guys.
Yep.
And originally, you and I and Jenna had gone back and forth, and we were talking about kind of what the trends were. And, I wanted to, and we just kept bouncing off each other. And I said, I want to give as much value as I can. If I'm going to come take an hour of you guys' time, I want it to be as valuable for you as it can possibly be. And so we kept bouncing back and forth. And I said to her exactly what I just said to you a minute ago. When I go in, and it's a lot of people reviewing food now. That was a fringe thing one or two people were doing 5 years ago when I started doing it. Well, now they're everywhere. 6 or 7 of them in North Mississippi. But I'm one of the few that does it, that owns a restaurant. So and I told her, I said, I'm always looking through that lens of a restaurant owner when I go in there. So I think I look at it differently. And she goes, well, that's what we need to talk about. How do you look at it as a restaurant owner? And then we kind of bounce back and forth. I said, I think it's more what I've learned from them. And that's really what I want to talk about it, because success leaves clues. As I've bounced around the Southeast and a little bit out of the Southeast, you start to see things that, and look, I can't tell anybody what's going to work for everybody. I can tell you though, what I looked at and said, that works for me in my business. And that's really what the hour is going to be about. And to give you a little preview, one of my favorites is one that you put me on, which was NFA Burger in Atlanta. You sent me that, and I was like not like a week later, I was headed to South Carolina, going right through Atlanta. It's in Dunwoody, but if you're not from Atlanta, Dunwoody, it's Atlanta. And he has really 6 menu items. He has a grilled cheese sandwich. He has a chicken sandwich, and he has 4 hamburgers. And all 4 hamburgers are actually the same hamburger. You can just get a different level of meat on them. And what I think about is he picked a lane and he said, I'm going to absolutely dominate the competition in this lane. And I think to me, that makes the most sense, especially if you're having trouble with your food service or if you're trying to get into hot food service. The trap, and I fell into this being in a small town when I first started 20 years ago. You want to try to be all things to all people. You guys have a very diverse customer base. And you think, well, I've got to serve all of them, but you really don't, because I'm a white guy. I love that we just talked about me going to these Vietnamese owned gas stations and the taqueria in Natchez and all. most people, I think Food Network has a lot to do with this, are adventurous eaters. 53% of all meals this year are going to be eaten outside the home. I mean, it's a really good time to be doing this, but I would suggest, for the simplicity of it, that you pick a lane and you double down on what you're really, really good at. That's really, I mean, like, we don't even have to talk now. That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to get a little more in depth than that, but that is, and I did this in my restaurant in 22, the end of 22. I wasn't happy. And I said, what have I learned through this experience? And how would and I just completely rewrote the menu in a week, closed for a week, rewrote the menu, and we've never looked back. I mean, it's been really a big game changer for us, but we narrowed our focus. And that I learned from you guys. I didn't come up with this idea. This is from, when I see the gas stations that are killing it, they're killing it on one or two things. And then they have some things to go along with it. Now, I will tell you this, Jeff, for everything like that I see that I think is, I call it the Cheesecake Factory style, where they give you the 3-ring binder, with all the menu items. Most of us can't pull that off, but I can tell you 3 or 4 gas stations that break every rule I'm going to tell you guys and do really well. So my idea may not work for everybody, but it definitely worked for me. And I think the simplification of your goals in food service, because people want to rise to the level of their goals, but they end up falling to the level of their systems. And when you simplify it, the systems become a lot easier. So that's why I'm getting real like business now, but that is what we're going to talk about.
Well, you just threw down a couple quotes that I think are you say those again in the master class, and people are going to write those down, and you're posting them on social media, but go.
They're not my quotes, Jeff. I'm regurgitating what I learned from you guys, what I hear in the business world. I'm regurgitating this stuff. I'm actually not very smart, but I remember damn near everything I hear.
Yeah, well, just don't use the word regurgitating when you're talking about C-store food. Just talk about the knowledge, not the food itself.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to that burger place you're talking about in Atlanta.
Such a good example.
Al Hebert, we mentioned him, and we traveled with him and you last summer to places around him. And he wrote up in Nax Magazine a couple months ago, it was like 2 months ago, wrote up in his Gas Station Gourmet column about that burger place. And he interviewed the owner. And one of the things the owner talked about was cheeseburger with bacon and things like that. And a lot of people, when they have cheeseburger with bacon, you take a slice of bacon, you stick it on top. Maybe it's 2 slices. And some of the bacon overhangs. You take a bite. Some bites have the bacon. Some bites have no bacon. Some bites have nothing but bacon. And what Al got out of this guy was, he said, what's really important to me, that every bite is awesome. So what they do is they make sure that they break up the bacon just a little bit so that every bite has bacon. And it's not like, well, that wasn't my favorite bite. Every bite will be your favorite bite. And they look at it through the eyes of the customer and how the customer enjoys it, not how the system should make it, what's easiest, what's fastest. And I thought that was super fascinating and just a really interesting takeaway. And how do you look at making, if that's somebody's only visit there, you want them to go, oh my God, every bite was delicious. And that's how he does that.
And that explains it exactly. It's just a perfect experience. If you like a smash burger, nobody in America is doing it better than Billy at NFA Burger in Dunwoody. Nobody. I hadn't found a better one. And have you been in there?
No. But now I wish the NAC show were in Atlanta this year, because there'd be hordes right out front, before, during, after the show. We're in Vegas this year, but we'll be back in Atlanta. We'll have to check it out then. Or just because it's that good.
Well, you go in, and I know you've seen the Soup Nazi on Seinfeld, so I don't want to throw on him that he looked like the Soup Nazi in Seinfeld, but you go in, it's very organized. You go into the register, you order, and then you go outside. You don't hang around inside because it's so busy, you can't hang around inside. Mm-hmm. You go out to the picnic table, somebody comes out the back door and brings you your food. And it's just so smooth. And it's so well run. It is such a good example of a food service business done right.
And managing the crowds. And by the way, we had the Soup Nazi on a podcast in the past. The guy who played the character on Seinfeld was at the Knack show a bunch of years ago, and he had a soup product that carried his likeness and as much of the branding as he could do and get away with it. He was an interesting guy, and I've been to the place in New York City, and it is pretty close to how they describe it. It is a very organized line. I didn't get yelled at because I didn't want to get yelled at, so that all worked out. But so now you have something in common with the guy who played the Soup Nazi. Who knew?
That's funny.
So as we think about, you're going to be at the Knack show in another 2 months. You're planning probably some sessions you're going to do. You're planning sessions you're going to visit. You're planning sessions or how your session's going to go. Is there anything that anybody can do to find you, or how might they get in touch with you and say, hey, Stafford, you got to come visit our place. You got to do this. You got to check this out. What are you be doing there, and how might they be able to find you either before, during, or after the Knack show?
So the easiest way is email is staffordshurden@gmail.com, but you can just type my name into pretty much any social media, and I'm pretty good about answering my messages on social media. I get a lot of messages from a lot of you guys, and I would love for you I'll throw this out too, not just come to the session, but I'm definitely going to leave a spot at the end for questions. And we talked earlier about how I'm really keen on trying to give as much value as I possibly can. Questions they're the best way to do that. Every time I get questions, I sound better when you ask a question than at any point, because I don't really know what you guys want to hear. But when you ask a question, there's a really good chance there's 2 or 3 other people in the audience that wanted to ask that question as well. So questions are great, and I'll hang around. I mean, if somebody wants to come by the session and hang out and talk to me afterwards, I would love to talk to you.
So it's basically, you always hear that saying, you got to read the room. And if you're too busy talking, you can't read the room because you're too busy talking. But if you start listening, It's pretty easy to read the room by hearing what people are interested in.
One of the interesting things, and you and I have talked about this, but one of the interesting things that has happened from setting up this session with the Knack show is the more I wrote down what I wanted to talk about and I realized it wouldn't fit in an hour, I'm like, I have a book. I have a whole book. And I've actually written about 90 pages from this idea that came from you and Jenna of, how does somebody from the restaurant side of things see food service in a gas station? And so I was really hoping to have it done by the Knack show. Unfortunately, I'm not quite going to be there. I'm about ready to go to edit, but it's a much larger subject than I realized. The interesting thing about it is I started looking at what I learned from you guys and writing it down. I went, am I really doing some of this stuff? Like, am I listening to my own supply, I guess? And so I've been trying to do a better job even here. So this has helped me kind of hone my own skills a little bit.
Well, we need more voices like you out there, because you spread, really, they're stories of joy, because as you said, they're positive stories. If something's not up to par, you're not going to shame them. You celebrate awesome things. It has to be in an awesome industry, which is ours. So that's awesome as far as I'm concerned. Let's get that book published and let's talk about it on the next podcast or at next year's Knack show or wherever we cross paths again, whether it's visiting you in Drew, Mississippi, and some stores that are your favorites. Just in closing, is there anything that you have in the hopper coming up, either filmed, in process, or something that is of interest that might get people a little excited about a future episode?
I'm always looking for new places. So even if you don't get to come to the next show, which we all hope you do, inbox me and tell me about what you're doing. I love great suggestions. I am trying to get out of the Southeast some. You guys posted, which still is kind of Southeast, but North Carolina's got some cool stuff that you posted the other day, Jeff. And I can't wait to get out a little bit. It's hard this time of the year since I'm going into harvest. I will tell you, I've had a lot of conversations with some network people. So maybe, just maybe, we're fingers crossed, you might see me on network cable TV one day. So we're hoping some of that works out. I've 2 or 3 people I've been talking to. So that would be a lot of fun for all of us.
That would be a lot of fun for all of us.
Yes,
just don't forget your friends.
I won't.
And,
I said earlier, the people that this kind of thing started, and it's not as a joke, but definitely tongue in cheek. And then all of a sudden, I didn't realize, I knew it would be popular. I didn't realize how popular it would be. But this whole gas station, convenience store, hot food thing is a rising thing. And I think if I wanted to leave anything with you guys, it's a rising thing, not a falling thing. And I know you posted a lot, the data on that it's the fastest rising portion of profit in this industry is hot food.
Yep. And it is the case in the U.S. and it is the case around the world, including Mexico City, where I guess we're going to see you at some point down the road.
I would love to go to Mexico City and do that. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I can drive my truck. Maybe I can ship the tailgate down there.
Yeah, well, there's that. We're going to have our Convenience Summit Asia in Tokyo. I don't know how that truck would fit Tokyo streets.
I bet I could lease a truck in Tokyo, probably.
Yeah, it'd have to be like maybe a scooter or
that
something.
Would be. I could do it off. Don't they have?
You might have to customize for different countries depending upon traffic patterns. Or
yeah, I think we can do that. But this thing has been a blast though. I just can't tell you how it's the most fun thing that I've ever done is going around and meeting all of you guys and learning about how you do business. It literally, I'm going to tell you this. I'm driving out in the middle of nowhere looking for this gas station, this hidden gas station one day. And I text my wife and I said, I think this is the most fun I've ever had in my life is doing this. So I've enjoyed it immensely and just falling in love with the industry and everything all you guys are doing. And like I said, what I thought was going to be me teaching y'all ended up y'all teaching me.
I'm not going to end it any better than that. So thanks for joining us today, Stafford. And thank you for being such an advocate for our industry and moving it forward. And as you said about our industry, what you do is rising and it's certainly not falling. And look forward to seeing you on the road. So thanks again for joining us.
See you in October.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.